So welcome everyone to our diversity inclusion working group town hall meeting. So my name is Rachel Rose and I am one of the co-chairs for this wonderful working group. And I'm really excited today to be here with my other co-chair, Carol, who can introduce herself now.
Hey everybody, I'm Carol, as Rachel said, co-chair with the lovely Rachel for what we're going to talk about last 5 years today, which is crazy. So really excited to be here.
It is really, really exciting. So, as Carol just mentioned, today's town hall is going to be a little bit different than in past years. We're going to start with our usual by talking a little bit about what our group does. And then instead of talking just about what we've done over the last year, we're instead going to take a step back because this year marks our 5th year of the working group, which is an amazing milestone. And we thought it would really be great to have an opportunity to talk about all of the wonderful things that we've done over the last 5 years, not just the things that we've done over just the past year. So to dive right into it, let's go on to our first initiative on the next, or talk a little bit about specifically what our group does and what the ASWF does. So in 2018, after an extensive multi-year study, the Science and Technology Council of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences recognized that the film industry, especially visual effects and animation, was really reliant on open source software. So they partnered with the Linux Foundation and founded the Academy Software Foundation as a common home for some of the most used open source projects in the industry, which I really appreciate. Now, the mission of the ASWF is to increase the quality and quantity of open source contributions by developing a governance model, legal framework, and community infrastructure that lowers the barrier to entry for developing and using open source software. Now, one very important goal that's a part of that was identified very early on in the formation of the ASWF was the goal to focus on diversity and inclusion by raising the profile of all software engineers in our industry. This makes me very happy, and I think it's a wonderful part of what the ASWF does. Now, to that end, the ASWF introduced the D&I working group in 2020 to help break down barriers, increase connection, and really bring together people, a wide variety of different people who are really passionate about diversity and inclusion, specifically within the open source community and within the media and entertainment industries. Now, to do that, our working group actually focuses on a number of different focus areas that Carol is going to tell you a little bit about now. Go ahead.
Yeah, so these three pillars, as we like to call them, are there are key focus areas. And whenever we're considering new work, new initiatives, trying to refocus on projects and really make sure that we're achieving our goals, we tend to go back to these three areas within our mission statement and increase ASWF diversity and representation, external outreach and education, and ASWF member guidance are those three. And they've been our pillars this whole time, but we actually did, as a part of work this year, take another look at our charter and refresh these goals and make sure that they're still in alignment with what we did. We kept them mostly. We ended up changing a little bit of wording on a few of them, but really it was nice with this milestone to do a check-in on that and make sure that we were all still as a group in alignment on these goals and what we were trying to achieve with them. So that was a really fun part of it. And then just a reminder in terms of group operations, if you ever want to see what we're up to at any given point in time, one of the initiatives that we did over the course of these 5 years is this D&I landing page, which is really fun and it's a good jumping off point for all of the information about our group. You can get there by heading to diversity.aswf.io. It's got things like those pillars, like our Slack and mailing lists and calendars. It's got all of our blog posts we'll talk about later, and it's just a great place to go and get connected with the group if you are curious about what we're doing or don't know how to get involved. And with that, let's get into it.
Awesome. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive pretty deeply into what we've done over the last 5 years. We could talk about so many different things because a lot has happened in 5 years. We're not going to have the opportunity to go into all of them, but we're hoping to hit some of the highlights from the very early days all the way up until now. So hopefully you'll get a good sense of the type of things that we do. And if you participate in the working group, hopefully you'll see things that you helped contribute to. And if you haven't ever participated in the working group, hopefully you'll see things that inspire you to become involved and help drive forward many of these important D&I focused initiatives. So the first one that I'm going to talk a little bit about is the VFX Career Webinar Series. So many students don't know that there are technical jobs for them in media and entertainment, but that really is just the tip of the iceberg and the very first thing that people hit as a barrier for getting into our industry. Another challenge is differentiating between the many different technical roles that we have within the media and entertainment industry. So one resource that we pulled together very early on in our first year as a group is a webinar series on technical VFX careers. Now, each 1 hour episode features diverse individuals across the industry who work in specific technical roles within VFX and animation, discussing what they do. Now, these roles include things such as software engineer, pipeline developer, and color scientist. But they also go into a lot of kind of the day-to-day of people's both work and how they integrate that into their lives. Now, the series was put out over the course of several months at the height of the pandemic and was open to the public to watch virtually and register from anywhere in the world, and then participate in some Q&As at the end that are not within their actual recordings. Those live sections were recorded, as I mentioned, and then they were released to the ASWF public YouTube channel so that anyone could watch them at any time. So this webinar series has gotten a lot of interest. We continue to see people coming and watching the videos. Of the 6 hours of content that are up there, we have about 10,000 views across all of them. And the recordings that are the most interesting to folks are specifically the pipeline developer role as well as the software engineer role, which again are very generic terms. And so I understand why people might want to dive in there and understand a little bit better what that means for our industry. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of people that go to the site on a daily basis and take a look at these videos. And we've also heard from a wide variety of different people that they have actually affected what those folks were able to do. So here's a wonderful quote from Adelie where she talked about how the webinar series really sparked a deep interest in her for open source. And that led to her becoming much more involved with our organization. She's helped build herself a portfolio that has enabled her to do more things within the industry as a whole. And then she's also become involved as an SLP engagement lead, a video editor for our working group for things that we put out, as well as a note taker for our group. So she's very heavily involved, and we love that that kind of started with some of the things that she watched in the webinar series. So I'm going to pass it off to Karen, who's going to talk about the next of our important initiatives.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I think the SLP I helped start back in our first cohort was in 2021. So if you're not familiar with the summer learning program, often called the SLP, that's what this section is all about. And I'm always happy to answer any questions. So it's definitely one of the initiatives that we put under the second column, the education column. Each spring, we accept applications from around the world for anyone who identifies with the certain dimension of diversity that we're trying to focus on that summer. And these are people who we are trying to encourage to pursue those technical careers and enable them with peer community, mentorship, and learning opportunities. So we select about 20 applicants to engage in the program over about 8 weeks. It's usually June, July. And it's a mix of synchronous and asynchronous content. And we've sort of iterated that over the years as we seek feedback and see what works, what doesn't work. But at the end of the day, they're getting practical skills, mentorship, and it's a very cohort model. So there's peer connections there as well that they can lean on each other and learn from each other. From our mentorship side, we have had mentors from DreamWorks, Industrial Light and Magic, Netflix, Amazon Web Services, Pixar, Autodesk, and hopefully you'll become the next mentor. And on the next slide, we'll see over the years how many different cohorts we have had. So in the past 5 years, we have run 5 cohorts. It's almost 100 people. It's 98 to be precise. And we started it back in 2021 and continued, as I mentioned before, to gather feedback and iterate off of the program, which has been a big strength to seeing that success escalate. You can see the different area dimensions of diversities that we focused on each year, with our last cohort in 2025 wrapping just last week on July 31st. So all of this growth has been steady and very, very rewarding. On the next slide, we'll also see some of the common stuff that we see from those who apply, but also those who are accepted into the program. This helps us as we start to see some trends for applicants as well as accepted folks, where we can focus that external outreach and education so we can strategically scale and put our efforts towards impact. But as you can see for this first one, most of our SLPs are studying computer science and love movies. This might sound familiar. Might sound a little look like you're looking in a mirror. They're usually in their last year of undergraduate education or just recently graduated. With the next click, we'll see that they're, as Rachel mentioned, they're really lacking awareness of the technical careers in visual effects and 3D animation, that it's even possible. So this is an area that we have a lot of growth potential for the industry. With the next click, we'll see that they're familiar with coding. Most of them are computer science majors, but they do not know Maya, they do not know Houdini, depending on which direction they're looking to go. And they're very unfamiliar with the pipeline, that there is a lighting, section that they could pursue. With the next click, we'll see that they're very interested in what they should be putting on a resume, what a successful demo reel should look like, what internships or opportunities to connect with people are available, and just working on general networking skills. So our program is very much focused on answering some of those questions and setting them up for success. And finally, we'll see that they need encouragement, specifically something that we want to consider for marginalized communities. There's a lot of little barriers that get in the way from them pursuing and seeing this as a career potential. So a lot of the intentional work that we do in SLP is to encourage folks to say, you already have what it takes. So let's just keep pushing you towards this successful path. And on the next slide, we'll see some notable results. Currently, I think it was around the beginning of 2024, I reached out to all of the former SLPs. At that point, we had 4 cohorts that had gone through, and most of them responded with overwhelming support for the program. Many said it helped them take their next step, that helped them feel empowered, let them know that this community was their community, which was really exciting and powerful to see as a group that we had this level of impact. On the screen, you'll see that there are some notable internships, jobs, experiences that SLPs were able to obtain after they were completing their cohort. And with the next click, we'll see, although it is a smaller percentage, we do see that some of our SLPs continue on to their master's or doctorate degree. And here are some notable current pursuits. So this, this was in 2024. So this allowed us as a group to really sit back and think about how can we engage this growing group. The SLP is working. We want to not just have them for the summer and say, okay, great job, continue on, but also cultivate that group and create kind of like an alumni experience. So those discussions are in the works, and we'll see where it leads. On the next slide, I do want to mention that we are an international program. The SLP, the Summer Learning Program, is an international program, but the majority of folks do come from the US and Canada. So you can see on the slide where they roughly have come from in the last 5 years, and I mentioned it's 98 people. So about 80% are in the United States, and about 10% are from Canada. Speaking of our Canadian friends, we'll see that most of them are coming from British Columbia. So of the 10 people, we've seen most of them come from British Columbia, usually the Vancouver area. And we can, on the next slide, see the breakdown in the United States. So of the 77 people from the United States who have been involved in the summer learning program over the past 5 cohorts, whopping 25% of them are coming from California. An impressive 12% is coming from Massachusetts for a small state. I was really proud of them for that. But also New Jersey, New York have about 9% each. But we could do better in Mountain West, Great Plains region, as well as South Atlantic region, as you can see on this slide. Speaking on the next slide, we can see that some of our learning content, one of the SLP pillars is learning. So I want to talk a little bit about how we go about doing that now that we understand sort of where they come from. So for the past few cohorts, we have utilized gifted Udemy courses of the SLP, the mentees choosing. And we've also blended in some FX PhD subscription over the summer months. And we've found that that's a pretty good model for our SLPs to find focus, but also learn from the cohort model. All SLPs start with an intro to Python in Maya course, which was graciously gifted by Drew Govil, which you can see the little in the upper right-hand corner. That's a screen grab from his Udemy course. And he's been supporting our initiative from the start of incorporating that, which is a wonderful gift that he has given us. And this course typically takes about the first 2 weeks of the cohort. Again, the cohort's typically about 8 weeks. So during that time, our team lead can meet with the SLP, who's again, usually very new to the industry, and help them understand a little bit more about the pipeline, figure out what 2 to 3 Udemy courses would work best towards their goals. And if we'll take a look in just a minute about the popular learning topics for all of these selected Udemy courses the past 5 years. And again, just thinking about how can we as an industry be better and be more strategic about unleashing the on-ramps to this industry. But I do want to just, before we start to get into that, just note that some of the Udemy courses have multiple flags to them. So we'll see some topics. So for example, there's a course, Python for Maya, Beginner to Advanced Rigging. So that would be flagged with Python, Maya, and rigging. So 3 tags versus some that are a little bit more niche. One that I wrote down was the GPU computing in Vulkan, right? So that's only going to have 1 flag. So it is a little bit, something that we want to consider when we look at this data. But in the next slide, we will see the top 90% of learners. What are they learning? And it is also worth mentioning that FX PhD courses are not counted here. Usually the Udemy courses is the biggest bulk of their content and kind of flags what they're interested in going into. Whereas FX PhD, they would do a deeper dive in a very specific subject or use it just to kind of test around to see if they like it and then either dive deeper in or say, nope, that's not for me. And the last thing I want to mention before we get into the numbers here is the first cohort in 2021, we actually utilized a different model, so Gnomon Workshop. And usually that was more of a sort of a lockstep situation. So, there was like an intro to Houdini and an intro to Maya cohort, and they all just kind of did that for the full summer. So although that's captured here, was a lot less specific than some of the other cohorts as we began to explore. But with all of that in mind, let's focus on the top 90% of learning topics for the past 5 years. And we've done a really good job capturing folks whose interests are Houdini, Maya, Unreal Engine, and Python. So we can see that as a marker of us trying to contribute to the final learning objective that we're looking for of this cohort. And I do want to draw your attention to the second to last column to the right that says arts related. So this column is really a demonstrative of how we've consistently iterated on the summer learning program. The first year we did have a couple of SLPs who were definitely more arts focused. So ZBrush and kind of sculpting, wanting to do that end of the pipeline, which is awesome, but not really the calling of what this program was meant to do. But as you can see, we were able to hone the application and review process so that the 2024, which is shown here in green, the second one to the top, and the most recent 2025 cohort shown in orange, the top of the stack, has grown to be more in line with the objectives of the organization. And I don't want to forget about the bottom 10%. So on the next slide, we will see that although this slide only counts for 38 entries of the 282 that we kind of process this data, you can see that we have come a long way from that lockstep model that I mentioned from 2021, where like you either got Maya or you either got Houdini, because our SLPs do have a lot of niche areas, different levels of experience. So we are able to be a lot more flexible and help them kind of really explore the area that they're most interested in, which is going to stack to success. So the other thing I wanted to take from this slide is the yellow on the screen. We can see that the 2023 cohort was really wildly all over the place, which is something that we love, but is also a marcation of the success of the program, having that flexibility to support their individual needs. I do want to take it back to the top 90% for this donut chart, which I was very excited to compile for us today. And then again, this is top 90 of all of the learning that has been happening over the past 5 years for all of our cohorts. And what we can learn from this slide is that we're doing good work. We're paving that path toward required skill sets in the technical careers of visual effects and 3D animation, keeping in mind that many of these people that we see are computer science majors, so they have that technical prowess going into this, but they need the Maya, they need the Houdini, and we can see some of the other DCCs captured here in other interest areas. So these trends, although admittedly it is a small sample size of about 100 people, can help us to understand where we as an industry can do better. And on the next slide, I want to take it back to something that Rachel said in terms of the webinar series, really helping people understand that this is a thing you can do, right? Technical careers in the entertainment industry. And the way that we've sort of boiled it down that we continue to iterate off of are 3 different steps. We have inspiration, education, and agency. So the inspiration piece, the webinar series definitely fits under that. Many of our SLPs are shocked, right, to learn that they can have a career in these 2 things that they love, this technology, this art, right, and they can blend it together here in this community, which is really amazing to see, and we want to enable that more. We need to bring awareness at an earlier age. That was the gift of the webinar series that we do also explore in the SLP. And answering questions like, what is pipeline, right? The real basics. What do technical careers exist? Where can I plug into this? So these are areas that once they have a hold of that, they can then be inspired to continue. And that continuation goes to education, right? Most of the common areas, like we saw on the previous slides, intro to Maya, intro to Houdini, right? As well as demonstrating how Python or other, programming languages can plug in and feed into these very well-known DCCs. But with those 2 things, you have the skill set, but you may not have the community, you may not have the connections to really take the next step towards agency, actually doing something with that inspiration, that passion, that education. So getting our community the inspiration, the education, we need the opportunities as well to break into the industry. So that's really where we're at right now, is being more thoughtful about internships, posting common pathways and skills for entry-level jobs. Working with schools is another potential that we've discussed. These are all just some ways to consider can we empower the next wave of technical creators. And on the SLP last slide that we'll see for today it's a lot of data that I just went over, but it's a great time to do that with our 5-year retrospective, and this as a purpose for that. So diving deeper into those past 5 years has really given us a humble grace to it to say, wow, this is really working. And we're getting a lot of great people in the program, and we want to see them continue. It's one of the reasons we want to explore that alumni experience as well. We're very fortunate to continue to have the support of the Academy Software Foundation, but we want your support as well. So if you're watching this now live or in the future, we have a space for you. We want you to come join us. I'm going to drop some links in the chat, but if you're watching this in the future and you don't have access to the chat, you can just go to the links that were on the previous slide, the slide for diversity, and find everything that we're talking about today as an access point for you to join us. And I'm going to flip it back over to Carol to take us to our governing board.
Thanks, Karen. I love listening to that every time. I never get bored about hearing about the SLP. It's just incredible what you and the team have done, and so congrats on that. It's really fun. We're going to talk about something a little less, maybe a little less flashy, maybe, but truly demonstrates the breadth of the work that we do in the DNI working group. And one of the initiatives that we took on a few years ago is to take a look at diversity in leadership at the Academy Software Foundation. So this falls into the diversity within the ASWF pillar. And we decided to take a look at this because we know from looking at many things and studying all of this over the years is that your leadership of your organization affects your organization, and how we structure that and how we think about it and how we are purposeful within it plays a big part in how the organization functions and the work that we do. And so we're always pushing, like Rachel and Karen have talked about, to affect the issue of diversity within our industry. But specifically, how do we look at our organization and influence that makeup, specifically of our two leadership groups, the governing board and the technical advisory committee, over time to reflect this focus? We're going to take a look specifically at the governing board today. And it really comes down to three areas: pipeline, appointees, and making space. So we need ways to impact our pipelines, and some of the other initiatives that we're doing impact those pipelines. How do we bring people into the space, into our organization from different backgrounds in lots of different ways to encourage them to get into leadership? We need ways for current um, governing board members to have a pipeline with which to support diverse appointees. So a little bit of guidelines and structure of what that looks like, what a good governing board appointee is, and how we think about that as an organization was all part of that. And then the third part, making space, is putting in um, guides and rules. Rules sounds strict, but it is like, it's a board. It operates on things that are put down in writing and stricter than some other forms of stuff. So how do we make that space, and how do we put in sort of processes in place that help us over time impact that initiative? And a couple of the things that we did when we put this policy in place, and we worked over several months with the governing board on this initiative, and it was led by the governing board to decide what they wanted to put in place and how they wanted to approach this, and what actually ended up going into the process. And we ended up doing two main things, one of which was term limits. And the second was putting in place alternates. And so it's been a few years now. So every governing board member nominates an alternate, which steps in and attends the meetings. And when the governing board member can't be there, but also when they can, to learn about how it works, learn about how the organization functions, with the intention being that that alternate replaces the governing board member when they term out in an ideal world. So that's how it is meant to sort of work. And it takes time. And one of the things that we're learning and I'm learning through this process is patience. And perseverance in this, and just trusting in this process that nothing happens overnight and we need to be patient. And we are seeing that. And so I wanted to put this slide in here with our current, most up to date that we have, photos of all of our governing board alternates. And I think it's really cool to look at. And you can see in this that the makeup of our alternates and the people that our current governing board are choosing to represent them um, in their absence and in the future are starting to look more like the world around us, in that much broader sense of the world, and the much broader community that exists in the Academy Software Foundation. So it's working, and we continue to adapt this policy. And like a lot of our other things, we look at it year over year. And we just went through with the governing board, re-looking at this policy after it being in place for 2.5 years now, and made sure that it's still kind of working the way that we want it to, and really looked at it. And we actually ended up making a few adjustments to that policy based on the needs of our organization after learning a little bit, and seeing it kind of in action. But it is in place, and we'll continue to use it and continue. I'm really excited to see it continue to move forward, and see what we can do, and also start to look at this in other areas of our organization, such as the technical advisory committee, which will not be the same. It will be a different approach that will be needed with that leadership body. And so that's on our next kind of thing, which we'll talk about later. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Montana to introduce herself and talk a little bit about Dev Days.
Thank you so much. Hello, I'm Montana Adlington. I was first introduced to Dev Days as a company organizer in 2024, and I thought the initiative was so great, and I felt so strongly about it that I wanted to join and help grow it globally. And I also want to do a big shout out to Olga Alvamenko, because without her, Dev Days wouldn't be striving as hard forward as it is right now. So moving on to Dev Days. So if you don't know what Dev Days is, it is an event sponsored by ASWF, and it's to encourage developers from anywhere, any experience to contribute to open source projects. Participants spend one day learning about a project of their choice, collaborating with others, and of course, writing code, the main point. Dev Days actually grew out of the D&I working group. So it was born here, but eventually graduating to its own Dev Days team, and being supported by tech. Dev Days has many benefits. Participants are learning new skills, mentorship from high-skilled project leaders, and to expand their professional network. And there's also benefits for companies as well. It's helping them invest in their team's professional development, empowering devs to resolve or add features and tools that they're actually using from open source, and just being a part of the community and giving back. So speaking of benefits, so share knowledge, grow the community, and foster diversity. In our most recent Dev Days that I'll get into in our next slide, we had contributors from all over the world. So Bangladesh, India, Switzerland, UK, Sweden, Canada, Australia, United States, and even more. So we definitely are seeing the benefits there. And on to the next of where are we now? So we are now in our fourth iteration, 2025 being the first year that we're actually going to host a spring Dev Days and a fall Dev Days. So that's 2 this year. I'd like to highlight on this click that you might see that there was a higher turnout in September, as Dev Days followed all the amazing promotion at the Open Source Days. And then, so we're looking for a huge kind of rollout coming in September. I think everyone just gets super excited and wants to be involved in all the great event stuff that we're doing. Another highlight is that Dev Day started with 5 projects being involved. Those projects were Material X, OpenColor.io, OpenXCR, OpenImage.io, and Open Review Initiative. And then growing on that, we moved up to 7 projects. And then in this most recent iteration, we actually invited all 16 projects to participate. So in May, we had 10 projects that were worked on, and then we're looking to improve in September to hopefully get all 16 projects there to be worked on as well. So going to the next slide about where are we going? So in 2024, we took from our learnings from the previous year. We improved on the scale of the event, the communication out to individuals, as well as introducing participation badges, which everyone loved. And then for 2025, we improved on the documentation, the information session, and as well as the issue labels. So looking ahead, we're looking to build on these successes and for it to become a staple event for the Academy of Software Foundation. The next Dev Days is going to be September. this year, 25, depending on the time zone, because it's over a 24-hour period. Registration will begin at Open Source Days, so you can look out for that. You can also join the Dev Day Slack channel at any time, and we'll be sending out information there as well. So all in all, totally great event. And it's not just for first-time contributors. We're encouraging everyone to come out and be a part of it in any capacity. And that's all for me, and I'll pass off to Rachel.
Awesome. So I'm going to talk very briefly about our last initiative that we want to dive into from our 5-year retrospective, and that is diversity-focused blog posts. So we post all the time on the ASWF blog site to help bring information about D&I and what we're doing in our working group to everyone in the community. On average, over the last 5 years, we have about 1 post per quarter from our group. This has included a wide range of things that are very deeply embedded within our group and other things that just touch our group in some certain ways. But some of those things are behind the screens. Pictures of who individuals are within the Academy Software Foundation and their backgrounds and kind of the wide diversity of people that we have as a part of the organization. We also do a lot of initiative reporting, so things like all of the initiatives that we've just talked about, posting a variety of different results of what we've been able to accomplish and telling people throughout the year about those different initiatives. In particular, we've had a wide variety of different posts on the SLP as being one of our most important initiatives that we drive forward every day. In addition, we also promote a lot of interesting D&I focused topics, including a blog post that will soon be followed up with more work in the area of inclusive language. We've also had guest writers who have come in to talk about women in open source. And one of my favorite posts was actually a discussion about tips for summer program applications for students, both if they're applying for the summer learning program, but also other programs within the industry. And then finally, we've also discussed things like accessibility within our blog posts, and we hope to continue to do much more. So with that point, while we have accomplished a lot in the last 5 years, there is still a lot to do in the area of diversity and inclusion, both within open source as well as within our industry. So what's next for our working group? Well, to answer that question, the first thing I'm going to do is just pop up a timeline of the work that we have done or that we had planned for this year. We are only about halfway done with this year, a little bit more than halfway done with this year. And we still have plenty to do. So a few highlights of the things that we are still working on for the rest of the year. We have several planned blog posts that we hope to get posted soon. And then we also have a D&I framework initiative that we've been talking about for quite some time. And through that specific initiative, we'd like to publish a page of resources, D&I resources for anyone within our community to be able to access. We've gathered tons of resources through our working group over the years, as well as through some targeted efforts to find some of these resources. And so we'd love to have those in an organized place where others can access them easily. I'm also very excited to announce today that for the coming year and beyond, we do have an interesting change coming up, and that is that Karen Ruggles will be stepping in as co-chair for the D&I working group for the ASWF. We are very excited about having her passion and joy helping lead the organization, especially after seeing firsthand all that she's been able to do as a member of the group. Now, I will in turn be stepping back after 5 years of helping lead the group, in that spirit of promoting diversity of leadership in all parts of the ASWF. But don't worry, I'm not stepping away completely. I will still be working with the group as a whole and will be regularly attending meetings and participating in initiatives. So Karen, I couldn't be more excited to welcome you as co-chair for the group. Do you want to say something?
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I do want to take a moment just to appreciate Rachel's leadership over the past many, many years. It's been such an honor to learn from both Rachel and Carol, and it's such a highlight of my day to engage with the community. I think it's just a wonderful place to have change, be recognized, and have your voice be heard and feel the impact. So I would always recommend joining our team. We've got a lot of cool things that we've done in the past, but a lot of awesome work to do for the future. And as Rachel said, there's a lot of work to do. So if you've been kind of thinking about a way to get involved, this is it. Stop thinking about it and start joining. You can join on Slack and start small, and then see the escalation with everything that we can do. So very excited to be a part of this chapter, and honored to be recognized.
We're so excited, Karen. And I also want to echo the thanks to Rachel. It's been, again, like highlights of my time here, 5 years, getting to lead this group with you. It's like it's super fun, and we have a ton of fun doing it, and I'm really looking forward to the future. And in that, we wanted to talk a little bit about what's next and some opportunities, more than anything, some opportunities to get involved. So you'll see a couple new things on this slide and a couple of question marks. And like we said at the beginning, we sort of bucket our initiatives underneath these pillars. And underneath for 2026, under ASWF diversity and representation, like I mentioned before, we'd like to follow up our governing board diversity initiative with the TAC. We already have some starts of what that can look like, and probably even in Q4 this year, if we get organized and do it right, we'll be starting on that and what that can look like. We've been talking about it with the group for a bit. Under external outreach and education, of course, we've got the SLP, and that's our staple, and that will continue to be, and we'll continue to grow that program. But underneath that, you'll also notice a new thing that we'll be talking about more. We started talking about with the group, and that's an academic partnership program. Karen hinted at that in the SLP as like a next step. Karen has many steps and plans for how we can grow and keep working towards her top of her pyramid, as it will. And so you'll be hearing a lot more about that in 2026 as we look at what that can be for the group. But we're also always looking for new ideas. The way that this group functions is by passionate people coming and doing work and joining the group and getting involved and pitching things and making things happen. We're a volunteer-driven organization. As John Murtick from the Linux Foundation likes to say, open source is a do-ocracy. And it really is about the people that do the things. And um, Karen and Rachel and I obviously provide the leadership and guidance, and we get involved a lot, and we do a lot of things. We have our initiatives that we push forward, but we also rely on members of the group to come forward with ideas. And so we purposefully put on this slide, which it made me uncomfortable to do, but then Karen and Rachel said, no, this is okay. We put question marks on this slide because we actually are not exactly sure what we'd like to pursue next in our member guidance section. And so we're looking for ideas. We're looking for people to get involved, not just in this area. It doesn't have to be about this. Bring what you're passionate about. But it's really important to just say that we don't have all the answers. We don't have everything planned out all the time. We want your input and your guidance in the community. And to that end, how to get involved. We've mentioned this a few times. Attend the ASWF DNI meetings. They are monthly on Wednesdays from 12 p.m. Pacific to 1 p.m. Pacific. You can find all the links to get the calendar invites on our homepage, and volunteer your time with something that you're passionate about. Even if you can't attend the meetings, get involved with the SLP. There's lots of different ways to do that. Get involved with, whatever dev days, whatever initiative makes you tick a little bit. Share our work. It can't be understated that this work happens a lot through our networking and visibility of promotion, and how we help people learn about the work that we do is through people sharing it. So please do that. And then, join the diversity channel for the general updates and just to chat and hear about all the things that we are doing. The last thing I want to say is we will be on site at SIGGRAPH. So if anybody is going to be in person at SIGGRAPH this year, we'll have our Birds of a Feather Monday, August 11th at 2 p.m. It's in the Marriott Pinnacle Ballroom. Unfortunately, this is in person only. We know that that's an unfortunate restriction. It won't be recorded, but we'd love to meet all of you that will happen to be on site in Vancouver for SIGGRAPH this year. We'll be doing a short presentation, but hopefully majority community discussion. And as organized by Furby Kramer, who is, you'll see posting in all of our Slack channels and everything like that, we're going to attempt to get as many people that are there into a group photo right at the start of our Birds of a Feather. So if you're there, make sure you're not late for the start of it so you don't miss the photo. And that's it for us. We have a little bit of time for question and answer and anything that I might have missed, Karen, Rachel, Montana.
Great.
Haven't paid attention to the chat at all either. So
I'm in it. I'm in it. Don't worry.
great. Great. All right. We'll hang out for just a couple minutes, but if there are no questions, consider this the end of our group, and we look forward to speaking with all of you soon. We did cancel our August iteration of our monthly meeting because it falls next week in the week of SIGGRAPH. So our next meeting will be in September on that Wednesday. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody then.